Comics have always been propaganda. And no, I don't want to know what the pocket in women's underwear is for. More mystery, less history. Click the links to send me the comics or to support the vitally important work I do. I'm saving souls here. I think that if someone writes stuff that I'm not into, then it's not important. So that means most of DC is kind of white noise, except for Batman. He was a cool character because he wasn't too powerful, where Superman didn't interest me at all. So when I looked at the stuff J. Faeber has worked on, it didn't interest me. Thus, it's not important. But I'm sure somebody out there loves his stuff. But I also assume that he's writing for Hollywood or doing something else, because the things that he's been working on, they didn't look hugely popular, but maybe I missed something. Perhaps he has FU money that allows him to write low-selling comics, like I assume this one's going to be. Even without the Wu Flu, this was not going to sell big numbers. The story is called Over My Dead Body, and get ready for it, it's about white guys committing violent crime. You know the Germans from the 30s, the Japanese, the Italians, the dreaded nationalists? If you haven't been paying attention over the past few years or decades, the only gangs in America are apparently of European origin, and all violent criminals have blue eyes. If you don't read comics that often, you wouldn't think about it. You just accept that gangs of color are invisible to Marvel. You'd be left with the vague impression that blonde people are all in motorcycle gangs. Actually, that's not true. Once you get a little older, you slowly realize that there is something wrong with this narrative. Blonde dudes don't typically rob liquor stores and blast innocent people. You know it, I know it, and Marvel knows it. And yeah, I'm using Marvel kind of interchangeably with the mainstream industry. And once your eyes open to this stuff, you realize that you have been fed propaganda for a while. At first, I assumed that it was a recent thing, but then I went back through the comics from pre-1990s. You still saw a huge overrepresentation of white gangs and criminals. But if you look at the crime stats from each of those decades, let's just say that the people of the light have always been way underrepresented. Comics have been lying to you this whole time. I think to get around this politically incorrect baby of tar, the comic propagandists have mostly, protagonists have mostly been supervillain types, not street-level hoods. But when Spider-Man did need to stop a bank robber, he would be a vaguely Italian guy who needed a shave. The people who work in comics, the people that make the decisions on what gets published, have always been globalists and, back in the day, closet commies. Go through your old comics. Half of the thugs are Italian-looking guys in beanies. Now the SJWs who control comics are publicly socialists who have a burning hatred for the people of the light. I've got to use a lot of euphemisms when making these videos. Now the bad guys are usually German-looking. Probably 90% of the evil characters have blue or green eyes. And coincidental enough, sales are down because most of your potential audience looks like the villains and are men. Why would they buy into this socialist feminist hatred? And for all the black dudes who are laughing at this kind of stuff, they're coming for you guys next. You guys are like, what do they call straight black guys? They're like, the straight black guys are like, I don't know, the white men of their community or something. And really, if you're a straight black guy who's married and raising his kids, to them, you're just a Republican. Well, if you probably are a Republican at that point. Anyway, the difference between Lone Star and Iron Sights and the rest of comicsgate is that comicsgate gives you what you want. SJWs give you what they want you to read. Lone Star, Iron Sights, Ravage are the best examples of stories for guys written by guys who aren't pussies. Pussies cannot write good comics. Like OMG, the hero will be an obese Muslim, Latina, trans lesbian who is totally going to show up the blonde man. So how will that help sell books? Oh, can't we just make the Nazis buy them? Comicsgate has dialogue that is close to how humans talk. SJW comic dialogue is Twitter speak. It's all stunning and brave posturing that is a virtue signal to others in the alt-left. Nobody has conversations about pronouns. If someone brings it up, most people would say that it's just childish nonsense. Or they'd use some less politically correct language, like if you talk to me off the air. Because most of it is just childish, attention-seeking behavior. There is a much darker undercurrent of Marxism beneath it, but the kids are just using it as a tool to stand out. Modern mainstream comics are using this bizarre trope of, I'm going to have to call them English supremacists. They use it for a couple of reasons. First of all, they really hate you people. It is a hatred that I don't think most normies understand. It leads to rabbit holes that we have to skip on this platform. They have slowly boiled the frog. I went back and I read Amazing Spider-Man 331 from 1990. There is a scene at, I would say 1990. Anything before 1990 is pretty darn good. But let's take a look at these beautiful female figures. This is what comic book girls used to look like. Just ridiculous, over the top, TNA. Because look at that. Look at that booty. Gravity defined boobs and just amazing. Yeah, of course it's over the top, but it's who's your audience? Sell to your audience. This is when comics were fun, and I would say before this. Anyway, so you get to this scene of a white kid stealing. There it is down there. A white kid stealing rims with a mohawk. It's punk rock, dude. If you live in a city, you know how insane this image is. The main plot is about corruption in the U.S. Army. The government is stockpiling cocaine to use to back its currency. About as ridiculous a plot as one can imagine, but also one that leads to anti-government conspiracy theories about the CIA selling coke to the inner cities. That rumor, which actually is not that much of a rumor, but it's an exaggerated one, it got started because diplomats and military attachés, i.e. spies, when they fly, they were bypassing security. Some of them smuggled dope. It's a problem all over the world, but it's a very small amount of cocaine, and mostly it's coming in from Mexico. South American Mexican cartels are selling most of the coke to the inner cities, but it's fun to blame the feds. Nobody is forcing you to do dope. You have to pay for it. They don't give it away. Anyway, instead of the writer blaming a foreign power for smuggling dope, he bypasses the issue of who is supplying it and blames the USA. It's kind of a weird vibe when you read the story twice, and it doesn't make sense. It is trying to blame America for Colombian cartels. Anyway, it is an odd anti-American story, and that was back in 1990. If the story was updated for 2020, they would take it all the way. The army guys would be blonde, pale superists, and they would sell coke to black single moms. If you think I am kidding, then you haven't been reading modern comics. So Faeber's story is about a white guy who goes around prison beating up giant black men. Yes, you heard me right. If you're black and laughing your ass off, I don't blame you. Most violence in prison is within the race, i.e. white on white or black on black. And you will never see a middle-aged white guy going around beating up black dudes. That is the most insane plot line that I have ever... But Faeber has an agenda to push, the myth of the violent, racist, pale-skinned person. The warden is an obese blonde man who is totally ineffectual. His daughter starts dating a, let's call him, pro-European type, and they move in together. So I am failing to see what the problem is here. You can be a pro any group you want. This is America. If a bunch of people decide to share rent on a ranch somewhere, that is perfectly legal. Calling them pro-Europeans is sort of irrelevant to the storyline. They are selling contraband. That is the storyline. The fact that they fly the stars and bars isn't important. Swap it around. What if you had the Crips selling coke and some of them believed that they were the only true humans on Earth? It's not relevant to the story, i.e. the black Israelites. But commies would never address the elephant in the room, the fact that most Istophobic people are not the light people, they are the color people. And all of that nonsense aside, it makes for a boring story. The last comic I did went on and on about fascism. Nobody cares. It's been done. It's also weird that they never mention socialism or crime by POCs. It tells the reader that they are just reading propaganda by an alt-left writer. Commies killed hundreds of millions of people. Fascists have not even come close. But the people who work in comics are commies, so communism gets a pass. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, or don't. But I wish you would. You can send me email or art for the channel, biancazombie602@gmail.com. Or you can send me stuff to the P.O. Box, but if you do comics or whatever, graphic novels, whatever you want me to take a look at, or hard copies of your art, just let me know when you're sending it so I can go check it. All right, guys, I will see you all next episode.